Good afternoon. How are we today? Excellent. Welcome to our concert series. Today is a listener's guide to the organ. And as you might see, we have some show and tell. There's some things up here. I have also been told that there may even be some prizes for audience participation. So just get ready for that in case you know some answers or have really good guesses. There might be something. But I am pleased that you're here. I hope that when you walked in, you saw that we have a table that has a bunch of cards with our upcoming concert series that you can find the QR code for. If you'd like to donate towards the restoration of our organ and the beautification of our sanctuary, we would love that. And if you have any ideas for concerts, we're always open to that as well. We've been doing this once a month for several months now, and it's been a great success. So thank you for being here. I'm going to turn it over, and our own Dr. Shelby Fisher is going to start us off. Thank you for coming. The piece that I just played for you is called Sunday Scherzo. This is by a composer who was born and raised in Utah, so maybe the Utah flavor came through a little bit. but a scherzo is a musical joke. So I'm hoping that you heard the jokiness, and sometimes Sunday is a joke. um, so as Pastor Elisa talked about, we are in the process of raising money to refurbish our organ. And before I tell you about organs in general, I just want to tell you a little bit about the instrument that we have here. So the original instrument was installed in 1966. It was made by the company Wix, which was a very popular American organ builder. And then in 1987, it was expanded to add these facade pipes in the front and a few other things by a local organ builder named Merv Brown. And organs are kind of like any other mechanical thing, like a car. With time, the parts start to function less effectively, and there's wear and tear. And so our instrument is just getting to the point where it's going to start to need some love in the next few years. So that is why we are starting this process. Even though the organ still works now, we're just trying to get ahead of it. So the organ, and if you came to our opening concert in October, I brought all of these pipes in October as well, so maybe you have seen them before. But the organ is basically a bunch of whistles that are sitting on a box that is filled with compressed air, and the air goes up through the pipes, and that's what makes the sound. And so the organ is actually a very, very old instrument. Do you want to go to the next slide, Kelly? These are just some tile mosaics that show, you can see the person standing playing an organ. So it's an old instrument that dates all the way back to Greece. And over time, the organ has been powered by many different things. So the Greeks like to use water to power their organs. So water pressure would create air pressure, which would force the air up through the pipes. And then they figured out that they could use bellows to create that wind rather than water. Organs have come in all different shapes and sizes over the years. Do you want to go to the next one, Kelly? Thanks. So this little tabletop organ, you can see that it just has a few notes and just a few pipes, but that was a little tabletop organ that you could have at your parties to accompany your singing. And that's the kind of organ that appears in a lot of Renaissance and medieval artwork. So there's Saint Cecilia, and she's got one of those little teeny organs to play for her lamb and her angel. And organs can also be very, very big. This is the largest organ in the world. So this is in New Jersey. You can see how many keyboards or manuals it has. And each of those little white tabs on the sides control what sound comes out when the organist plays the notes. So it's kind of looks to me, I've never been in a spaceship before, but I feel like that's what it would be like to pilot a spaceship. Unfortunately, this organ is no longer operable, and currently the largest playable organ is in Philadelphia. It's the Wanamaker organ that was installed in the Wanamaker department store, which is now Macy's, and if you ever go on vacation to Philadelphia, you can go hear that organ played. So it's not quite as big as this, but pretty close. And so this is kind of what the inside of an organ looks like. So the pipes that you can see here are just these ones along the facade. But if you look over to the side in this little trapezoidy shape, behind that wall is the organ chamber. And that is kind of what it looks like inside that chamber. So there are several different wind chests with pipes sticking down in them. And the pipes come in all different shapes, and that is how they make different sounds. So this is where I actually need my first volunteer. Yes, I love it. Come on down. Okay, so since the people who are sitting down can't see all of these things, these pipes, I want you to just tell the audience what you notice about these pipes. What are they made out of? How are they shaped?
Some of them are made out of wood and some of them are made out of metal. The ones that are made out of wood are rectangular, more rectangular than the ones that are made out of metal. Metal ones are more cylindrical.
Excellent, excellent assessment. And do you notice anything different about, so this would be the top. Do you notice anything different about the top or the ends? Are they all the same?
I mean, this one has something sticking out of it. Okay. But for the most part, they're all like, I mean, they're all hollow, I guess. Like they have an opening on the top. I don't know.
Excellent. Thank you. You can go see Pastor Lisa for your prize. Okay, so she is correct. We have some pipes that are made out of wood. We have some that are made out of metal. This one is made out of metal, but it has a little hat on it. This one is made out of metal, but it has this funny little cone thing on the top. It looks like a snowball shooter or something. Yes. So all of these different shapes, that's what helps the organ make different sounds. Otherwise, the organ would only be capable of making one sound. But by using different kinds of metal, different shape, different kinds of wood, putting a topper on some pipes, leaving others open, it allows us to have soft sounds and loud sounds and everything in between. Okay, so now I need another volunteer who really likes numbers and math. Okay, come on down. We know you like math and numbers. You could put this in a spreadsheet if you wanted to. Okay, so you actually get to come all the way over here. So the part of the organ that we actually sit at and play is called the console. Okay, so that was what the picture of the spaceship organ, that was the console. Okay, so I want you to look at these little stop tabs and just tell me what you notice about the numbers.
Well, they look like they're multiples of 4. Okay. Well, except for those. Well, there's some fractions in there too.
Yeah.
Fractions in there, but not multiples of 4.
Okay.
But the rest of them look like they are.
So we have 16,
8, 4, 8, 2. There's a 2 and 2/3. A 2, and then a 1 3/5, a 1 1/3, then a 16, 8, 4, 16, 4, 8, blah, blah, blah.
Excellent. You can have your prize.
Okay, good.
Okay, so for today, we are going to ignore the fractions. We are just going to stick with the whole numbers. But as she said, we have multiples of 4, and it's actually all based around the number 8. So when I am playing, when an organist chooses a stop tab that has an 8 on it, that is what we call the fundamental pitch. So you can see in the little picture, the finger is playing middle C, okay? And the sound that you would hear is middle C, okay? So I will show you. Okay, my finger is on middle C, and you're hearing a middle C. But one of the cool things, and that's the way it would be on the piano, but one of the cool things about the organ and the way the organ is able to get very, very, very loud with just one person playing it is we can play multiple pitches at the same time by actually really just playing only one pitch. So if I add to this stop a stop tab with a 4 on it, I would still be only playing middle C, but you are going to hear middle C, and you're also going to hear the C an octave higher, so it sounds louder even though I'm not doing any extra work. So I'm still only playing middle C. This is just the 8-foot. And when I add that 4, you can hear the octave. So it gets louder, but I only need one finger. Okay? And I want you to guess what happens if I push a stop tab that has a 2 on it. What do you think happens? I see this with fingers. Okay? Exactly. So if I add a 2-foot to that, it will add another octave and it will sound even louder. So here's the 8, here's adding the 4, and here's adding a 2. So I am still only playing one note with one finger, but it sounds kind of like a chord, right? Okay? And we actually can go in the opposite direction also. So, what do you think would happen if I add a 16? You guys are so smart. You're all ready to become organists. Okay? By adding a 16, it's going to sound the octave lower. Okay? This organ doesn't actually have a 16-foot stop on the manuals, so I technically can't show you. But bigger organs would have a 16-foot, and bigger organs sometimes go even further with the pedals, and they would have a stop that is 32, and sometimes one that is 64. So that is how you were able to get so much sound out of an organ with just 2 feet and 10 fingers. It's because you're cheating, and you're playing all these extra notes without really playing them. So the organ's sounds are grouped together into tone families. Some tone families are imitating other instruments, but there is one tone family that's unique to the organ, and we call these the principals. So this is kind of the classic organ sound. We use it a lot when playing hymns. And so I'm going to go ahead and play a piece for you using just principals. So you will hear a 16-foot in the pedal, you'll hear an 8-foot in the pedal, you'll hear a 4-foot in the pedal, and then you'll hear an 8-foot in the manuals, and a 4-foot in the manuals, and a 2-foot in the manuals. Okay, so it's going to be a nice full sound because I'm combining all of those different stops together. The piece I am playing for you is attributed to Johann Sebastian Bach. Probably wasn't by Bach, but he gets all the credit for all of the things. And this is the Little Prelude and Fugue in G minor.
light went away. It was neither orange nor green, it was gone. So the next group of stops are called the flutes, and as you can imagine, they are supposed to sound like a flute, okay? Flutes can be made from wood, flutes can be made from metal, flutes can be very light and delicate, they can be a little bit more hefty, but for the most part, the flute family is a lighter and more lyrical sound than what you just heard with the principals. So the piece that I'm going to play for you is called Humoresque. It's another scherzo. We're just feeling very humorous today. It is by an Italian composer named Pietro Jan. Some of you have probably heard his Gesù Bambino. Katie's nodding. She and I have talked about this before. That's the piece he's probably most well known for, but this is another delightful piece that is played just using flute stops. That the organ can make is the one that is probably the most exciting. And so there is a group of stops on the organ that we call reeds. Now this is a little confusing because the most well-known and favorite reed is probably a trumpet stop. And if you know anything about musical instruments, Terry is shaking his head. a trumpet is a member of the brass family. It is not a member of the reed family. So this is kind of confusing, but it has to do with how the organ pipe itself is constructed. And so reed pipes, this is a reed pipe, and this is a reed pipe. So you can see that these are a little bit more complicated than the flute that just looks like a whistle, right? This just looks like a little penny whistle. And so the reason why it's called a reed is because it actually has a vibrating piece inside of it, like a reed instrument from the reed family in the orchestra does. And to make it more confusing, there are some reed stops on the organ that have names that are actually reeds, like the oboe. So it's very confusing when people are first learning to play the organ and they're like, but a trumpet's not a reed. It's okay. And so like I said, the reed pipes are a little bit more complicated. So they have this bottom piece right here, that's the boot, and then this little top piece that fits down in, okay? And then the shape on the top, that's what makes it have the different sounds. And then this little guy right here, this little wire, that's how you tune it. Reed pipes are notorious for going out of tune, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you right now. The piece that I'm playing for you is called Festive Trumpet Tune by David German. It uses a trumpet stop, a very out of tune one. It just gives it character. See what I mean? Flavor. It's like an aromatic French cheese. The final group of organ stops is called the string family. As you can imagine, it is supposed to imitate a string instrument like the cello or the violin. String stops are usually very mellow and very beautiful. Um, there is a special string stop that is called the voix celeste. And the voix celeste is tuned a little bit sharp. And so when you play it against another string stop, it kind of makes this undulating wah 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 sound that is supposed to sound like tremolo when you're playing the violin. And so the piece that I'm going to play for you uses the voix celeste. So if your ears are very astute, you might be able to pick up on that sound. For this piece, I actually need a volunteer that is willing to sit up here while I play. All right, Susie, you came in just in time. So Susie, I would like you to sit in the choir loft, okay? And while I'm playing, I would like you to train your eyes upon this trapezoid right here. Okay, that's your job, is to watch that. Because when I'm finished playing, you are going to tell the audience what you observed. No pressure. Okay? The piece that I'm going to play for you is Prière à Notre Dame by Léon Boelman, who was a French composer. So this translates to Prayer to Our Lady. Okay, Susie. Tell the people what you saw.
So it's kind of like slats in there, and it's like, kind of like blinds. So it's muffled, and then when she opens them, that's when they got a lot louder, and it like let all the air and sounds through.
That was a brilliant assessment. Yes. So organs can have some parts that are what we call enclosed, okay? And that means that they are inside of a chamber. So these pipes that are exposed, they're not enclosed. If they're enclosed, you can't really see them, okay? So the pipes that are inside of this organ chamber, there are some little vertical shutters, and Susie is right, they do kind of look like the vertical blinds that you have on the outside of your, or inside of your sliding glass door that goes out to your patio. And there is a pedal that is above the pedals that play notes that is called the swell pedal. And by opening and closing that pedal, you are able to open and close those little shutters. And when it is closed, it dampens the sound a little bit. And when it's open, it lets the sound out. Sorry, I don't know why I was walking away. I'm just so anxious to play more things for you. So the final piece that I'm playing for you is called Celebration. This uses all of the different stop families that we have talked about so far. So you will hear the principals, you will hear the reeds, you will hear a reed down in the pedal, and you will also hear one up in the manuals if you're listening very closely. And there are some flutes. And that's all. Oh, yes, Terry. Absolutely. Uh-huh. Yeah. That is an excellent question. So yes, so for example, when I am playing Celebration for you in a minute and I'm using reeds and principals and flutes, it would be every little stop tab that I have selected would be a pipe that is sounding. And some of the stop tabs are magic special stop tabs, and they actually have multiple pipes that sound when you push a single note. So sometimes you get bonus pipes too. I don't know. I haven't counted them. I'm going to assign that task to you, Terry. So when we are talking about the size of an organ, there's a couple of different metrics that we use. So we talk about how many divisions that it has. So divisions are groups of pipes that are controlled by either a different keyboard or the pedal board. So our organ has 2 manuals that you play with your hands and 1 pedal board. So in total it has 3 divisions. And then within those divisions, the pipes are in ranks. So each stop tab is a rank. So when we talk about whether an organ is big or small, we're talking about usually how many divisions it has and then also how many ranks of pipes. So our organ is 3 divisions and it's about 20 ranks. Be very impressed. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, should, or how often is it actually tuned? So an instrument like the one in the Salt Lake Tabernacle, where they are using it weekly for broadcasts and they need it to sound top-notch all the time, they actually have organ technicians on staff, and their only job is working on the instruments on Temple Square. And so that organ gets tuned very, very regularly. But also an organ of that size, it takes a long time to tune the whole thing. We have our instrument tuned twice a year. usually once a year is kind of standard. Ours is a little finicky and it doesn't stay in tune very well. So we get a bonus tuning. That's a good question. Yes.
How do you tune the pipes?
Well, it depends on what kind of pipe you're tuning.
The wooden one.
The wooden one? I actually don't know. I've never tuned one. Can I phone a friend? Dr. Yudi, have you tuned a wooden one?
Yeah, they have a little stopper on top and you pull everything out.
Okay.
So it lengthens the pipe or shortens it.
So see this little plug here? Yeah.
You extend the tube or
Well, so this, you got to think back to your physics class in high school, okay? If the sound travels a shorter distance, is it going to be higher or lower? Higher, right? And if it travels a longer distance, it's going to be a lower sound. So to tune something and make it higher, shorten it. To tune something and make it flatter or lower, you got to lengthen it. Okay?
how do you tune the metal pipe?
Kind of the same idea. Like they'll have a little, so these, it's this little metal thing right here.
How about the big pipes?
That's a good question. I'm not an organ technician. I just play it. I don't know how to fix it. I only know how to fix it when there's like a,
Is there a metal part that you can, I don't know, bend? Or
yeah, so some of them will have like a little scrolly part that you bend. So it really just depends on the kind of pipe. Sorry, I don't know all the answers to that. It's a whole different world I don't know about. Any other questions? Yes, Terry.
So when you rebuild an organ,
Mm-hmm.
seems to me from what I've been taking teaching, you've got pillars.
Yep.
Which are out of the
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the little moving devices that can pipe those ones apart.
Mm-hmm.
The stopper things, you can adjust up and down. They probably can, it's decent fit as well as they must be. So how many different parts are there in the organ? I know you probably thousands of little pieces that
Kind of. Yeah. So again, it depends how the organ is made. So organs nowadays have electronic components, whereas, box organ back in the day obviously had no electronic components. So there are a whole lot of wires, and, little soundboard, like what would be in the back of a digital piano, and those components just wear out over time, and the technology gets better. Yes. I started playing the organ when I was 12. No. So I started playing the piano when I was 5, and I had zero interest in the organ because the only time I ever heard the organ played was a little old lady at church, and it was not very good. So I was perfectly happy to just stick with the piano. And then I heard the organ at the Cathedral of the Madeleine downtown, and I went, wow, that's what that can sound like? And I was hooked from that moment on, so. Anything else? You guys ask good questions. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and play my final piece for you. After I'm finished, you are welcome to come up and look at these pipes. You can come up and look at the console. If you think of questions when you're standing in front of the console, I will be happy to answer them for you. And thank you for being here. You're welcome to come back and join us for another concert on March 17th. So it is going to feature Appraisation, the Wesley Bell Ringers, and the Bingham High School Magical Choir. So each group will do some pieces on their own. We'll do some pieces combined. We're going to do some organ and bell pieces. It will be a good time, so please come back.